Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Wandering Road podcast. I'm your host, Chris, and for today's episode, I'm running this one solo this week. Reason being is life has been a little hectic and a little busy for both myself and Dean. We did not want to miss a week of episodes. We've been doing this consistently for over 115 episodes now. I think this one should be, 118 or 119. So we just wanted to keep the ball rolling for everyone. This one might be a little shorter than normal if you've been a listener from the beginning or if you've listened to my very first episodes. Some of them were solo, but that's enough of me rambling about our personal dealings and how busy we are, because I know, we're all busy. But for today's episode, we did receive a listener story via email that I read through a couple of weeks ago, and I've been looking for the right time to share this story in an episode with everyone. I really enjoyed reading these stories. I want to say thank you for the listener that submitted this. I did respond back to the listener that submitted this story, but I will keep them anonymous for this episode. But without further ado, here are the stories for tonight's episode. When you hear this episode, I'm sure you will recognize who I'm talking about immediately, and you can always reach back out to us. The listener starts, "Hey, just wanted to say I enjoy listening to you guys. I wanted to share some of my family's experiences and stories. Not much has happened to me that is paranormal, but as I've gotten older, I do question certain things. We were raised Pentecostal Christian, very religious. We couldn't cut our hair, get piercings, wear pants. We did not watch scary movies. It was Fievel, The Secret Garden, and Benji on VHS. No to Barbies because they were from the devil. My first story is I've always been afraid of water. My sisters and family used to make fun of me. The bathtub would be filled maybe 2 inches and I would be scared to be left alone. I would say, "Me ahogo, meaning I'm going to drown, I'm going to drown." In fear, when I was younger, I remember seeing a large white pool, and I remember being really high up and falling, and then nothing else in my dreams. I've asked my older sister about this, and she doesn't remember a pool either. No, we never lived with a pool nearby. We lived in California, and we went to the beach every weekend. The first time I wore a swimsuit and went to a pool for the first time was in 2002. I remember this because we moved to Nebraska and we couldn't wear our t-shirt and shorts like we used to at the beach. I did have a near drowning experience when I was 8. We were at the beach. My dad showed me how to move my arms and kick. We were also near the orange netting from what separates the beach and safe ocean. At first, I was fine, until I started sinking, and my dad said keep kicking. I eventually sank into the ocean, and after a while, my dad got me out. I don't know how long I was down in the water. I just remember my throat burning. For a long time after this, I remember having a different dream twice. A girl drowning being stuck under like roots in a river, and the following night, the same dream, but seeing this girl's body floating face down. I tried searching this when I was like 14, and I couldn't find anything. My search skills were probably terrible then. Could it be Mexico? The US? Did my mind make it up after my drowning experience? Then what about the first dream? Is this a past life or two that resurfaced? I tried learning to swim maybe 15 years ago, and I couldn't get over my fear. I can go to the pool. I hate getting my body fully submerged underwater. I've also made sure my kids know how to swim because I know I can't save them. Firstly, with this story about water, I don't like water either. I don't like going to the beach. I will go into the pool sometimes. Always have this fear of water as well. So I completely sympathize. And I think for me, it's because I hate the feeling of water covering my ears. It just feels awkward when you first submerge. But one thing I wanted to touch on here is the two dreams that you had. First dream of a girl being stuck under roots in a river, and then the next night you had a follow-up dream about a girl's body floating facing down. I don't think it's because your search skills were terrible anything like that. Honestly, I think this was probably some sort of reaction that you had to that experience of nearly drowning before your dad could pull you out of the water. It was probably some sort of trauma response in which, you had something truly traumatic happen to you. We, as human beings, we like to internalize things and we hold things in, but I can only imagine being such a young age, because I've had, I would say, some very traumatic experiences around that age as well, and you kind of dream of those things. I think that could be the cause of it. I think it's interesting that you brought up the possibility of a past life, because I also subscribe to past life theory, that we have past lives, because I think, some people listening to this would be like, hey, maybe you're full of shit. But hey, that's what I think. I truly think that things that we are afraid of could potentially be related to our past lives, things that we are attracted to, in the sense that we are drawn to certain things. Like for me, from a very young age, from like maybe ages 3 and 4, I was always attracted to history. I was always attracted to Roman history. My mom couldn't understand it because she never taught me that. No one ever taught me that. I just kind of discovered it myself. Maybe certain experiences that we go through can trigger potential flashbacks in our dreams, because our minds are very powerful. Our subconscious is very powerful. You never know what you can tap into. If you want to err on the scientific side, we're probably looking at a child that just went through a traumatic experience. They're just trying to deal and cope with it, and that's how it's resurfacing. Moving to the next one. From 1999 to 2002 in Compton, California. We lived in the projects. My parents were told they would be on the wait list for years. But within a year, we moved to a 3-bedroom apartment on the 2nd floor. We loved it. It was spacious compared to our old place. We had a 2-bedroom apartment that we shared with another lady and her son. We slept in our sofa bed in the living room. We were a family of 6. 3 girls, 1 baby brother, and my parents. My little brother got a small room that felt creepy and dark and shadowy. Everything else was amazing. Lots of light. We were always scared to go in that room. My mom would ask for a diaper, and we would always try to get another sibling to do the request, being getting the favorite toy, getting the baby's clothes, etc. We would go in and run out ASAP. As soon as we moved in, my brother always cried around 2 to 3 a.m. like night terrors. One day my mom decided to go into the bedroom and sit in the chair to see why he cried. The following day, my mom said there was a black figure in the room that scared my brother. My dad didn't believe my mom. My dad told my mom to leave my brother alone at night, but after a couple of more nights, they eventually let my brother sleep in their room. That bedroom stayed with all of my brother's things, and after a couple of months, my older sister begged my dad for the room. He said that she could sleep in there, but it was still my brother's, and she could get kicked out at any time. Essentially, time passes. Nothing happens. There's one night my sister forgot to pray at night because she was tired. She told us the following day that she felt like she couldn't breathe and felt like something fell on top of her. She said she couldn't talk or move, but in her mind, she said, "Con la sangre de Dios te reprendo." With that, she was able to move. She prayed. After that, and she was able to go to sleep again. Fast forward a couple months, an uncle moves in with us. The small bedroom goes to my uncle, and after 1 week, my uncle tells my parents that he feels that someone really heavy grunts and falls on top of him at the same time every night. When we finally move out of this place, my dad asked if the rumors were true. They told my dad, "Do not believe anything he hears." But as he was leaving, someone came out and told him there was a drug deal that was gone wrong, and a man was shot multiple times by the police. We were the third family that had been in that property since the incident, and they were surprised that we were there that long. The other families only stayed a couple of months because the place was haunted by the person who died. But I think about it. We were very religious, that I think being full believers, we were protected. That is an interesting experience. That is an interesting story because I can completely resonate with that. Going into a location and then going into whether it be a room, an apartment, or even just going into a home, you can definitely feel that heavy presence. As I've said multiple times on the show and with my own episode, I believe it was episode 75, where I shared my own experiences, I completely get it. There's just something in the atmosphere that just changes. It's just a thick atmosphere. It's really hard to explain until you experience it yourself. But I do think that whatever was in there was probably, I wouldn't say malicious or demonic or something of that sort, right? Because from what your father found out from the stories and rumors from the other neighbors was that it was a situation that went south and somebody ended up passing away. So it could always be a situation where that spirit that's lingering there probably doesn't know that they're dead, probably very confused and very angry because of their sudden loss of life. So that could always be a possible explanation. But one thing I'm very glad about, it doesn't seem like, from what you explained in your story, that the activity ramped up to different locations in the house. It sounded like within your apartment, it was just localized to that one area. And I do think that being believers did help. With your prayers, it seemed that made things go away and calm things down for whoever was staying in that room. Very interesting experience. And thank you for sharing that. Moving on to the next part of the email here. This is titled Guardian Angel. I think sometimes I have a guardian angel. There have been 3 times I can remember that I changed my mind and plans due to a feeling. At this point, I was already a mom, around 2012-ish. I got home early. I parked in front of my house. I was dreading going inside. I stayed outside for like 5 minutes. I noticed I had mail in the mailbox. I go and grab the mail. I see a letter addressed to me from a church. It looked like a normal envelope, but it was a little on the thick side. I stood in front of my house door, but I didn't want to go in, so I go back to my car and read it. Someone had placed a prayer for me, and the church wrote a letter of encouragement. I read the letter twice over. It had a little notepad. I don't remember the church, but maybe 10 minutes in, I finally go to my house. I open the door, and my kitchen knife is stabbed into my staircase. My train of thought is, if I would have opened the door when I was going in, I could have been stabbed while my house was being robbed. The second time, I had some errands to run. I wanted to pick up my son, but something told me, not yet. I ended up getting in a car accident, a hit and run. I was in shock. Then, thinking about it with a clear mind, if I would have had my son with me, his side would have gotten the impact, and who knows what would have happened. The most recent one, 13 days ago. I'm a creature of habit. If I go a certain way, I always go that way, unless the street is closed. But last Saturday, I felt I should go a different way that was roughly maybe 2 miles from my house. So instead of going on the main highway, I took smaller roads. I was heading home at 3:04 p.m. when I changed my path and thought to myself, that's odd. Again, I headed out to do the Mother's Day lunch with my kids around 4:30 and realized 204 and F was closed. I think someone died here, I told my eldest. I felt it, dark and heavy. Sure enough, I reached my destination and found out an accident had happened at 3:50 p.m. and someone died at the scene. It makes me wonder, do shadows come into an area where death is going to happen and some people have the ability to see or feel this? As I get older, I feel like I'm more open to knowing that there is more out there that can be explained. For example, duendes, naguales, witches.
That everything is sentient, like the trees and plants, and need to be thanked for giving us their life for us to heal and nurture us.
I also have a couple of more stories about my mom who visited my deceased grandma and baby or angel. My mom has always had dreams of things that have come to pass. She's known when any of my sisters have been pregnant and has known the sex of the baby and has only been wrong 2 out of 13 grandchildren. Wow, that's a really amazing feat. So kudos to your mother. My mom is very religious in a sense that she believes in God but no longer has a church, and it seems her prayers always get answered. My dad got shot in Mexico by my uncle in the chest and fell backward from the impact, but nothing happened to him. He had some type of bag stuffed in his chest that had the deed to the house they were feuding. An uncle who also escaped death following La Santa Muerte. Recently, an aunt died in Mexico. After her burial, family members reported the family house was filled up with flies. They state it's a strong spell against her. I have a family story about buried in treasure in Mexico after the revolution of Pancho Villa. And that ends the email. I do want to thank this listener for sharing these stories. I always appreciate when you, the listener, take the time to reach out to us and share your stories, share your comments, share your thoughts, ideas. To be honest, that's the real reason why Dean and I do this show. Always remember that you're not a bother. If you want to reach out to us, go ahead and reach out to us. But before we end, I do want to address the last couple stories. We'll start with the guardian angel story. I think that the concept of a guardian angel is a very interesting one. If I view it from the perspective of a Catholic Christian, I think definitely there might be something out there. There's probably a guardian angel that we all have that try to nudge us in, the right direction when, we're not supposed to be somewhere. You got that feeling that you're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong, but you get the feeling like, shit, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be doing that. Some people will say, it's your intuition, it's your gut feeling. Other people will say, it's your guardian angel trying to keep you on the right path. If I view it from the Catholic perspective, I think there's plausibility to both. I do think that our gut feelings are very important. They do try to convey a message that something doesn't feel right. I think you should always go with your gut. I know sometimes your gut is telling you when you're not feeling well, but that's a little different from what I'm trying to convey here. I do think it's really important to follow that gut feeling because there have been a couple of instances in my family where, specifically with my mom, I always listen to my mom. When she tells me, she gets a feeling about something, she gets a bad feeling, like saying, I don't think you should do X, I don't think you should do Y. I go ahead and listen because there have been a couple instances in my family where, moms warn their children and they don't heed that warning and it ends in disaster. I'll leave it that way. But definitely you could have some sort of presence or something protecting you because I remember my mom told me a story when she was younger that when she was walking around the countryside with her friends, she grew up in the Caribbean. She had to have been maybe 7 years old. There was like some lady, like a bruja or something, that came up to her and said she had something very powerful protecting her. And if my mom could give it to her, and just asked if I could have it. And she said, my mom, being a kid, not knowing any better, was like, yeah, you can have it. That's fine. And then my mom said the next day, the lady came back to her and said, whatever you have is very powerful. It's very strong. It does not like the fact that you gave it to me and I have to give it back to you. So I don't know if that was my mother just sharing a tall tale with her kid, because I was a very inquisitive kid when I was younger, asking all these religious questions that, maybe a 6-7 year old shouldn't be asking. That's what I think about, the guardian angel concept. I do think there might be something to that. I also think that at the same time, we should follow our intuition, follow our gut feeling. If something feels wrong, definitely pay attention to that. What's interesting about the dreams about things that have come to pass. There's been a few times where I've had dreams myself about certain things. I'd be in a certain place, doing a certain thing, being with certain people. And then I would get hit with an instant deja vu of like, holy shit. And then I would remember that dream. I remember there was one instance where I had a dream that I was walking somewhere and I walked by these group of people and I was attacked in the dream. But then we fast forward to me actually walking downtown and I'm walking on this. I get hit with the deja vu. I'm walking down the same street. I'm coming towards a group of people. I thought back to that dream when I got with the deja vu, and then I crossed the street. So there might be something to that. I do have a cousin that, when they dream, they have predictive dreams, you would say. So I definitely think that's a thing. Some may have that ability, like your mom, that's more developed than others, but I definitely do think that's a thing. I would definitely love to hear more of your stories, specifically about your uncle that escaped death following La Santa Muerte, stories about buried treasure after the revolution of Pancho Villa. That would be freaking awesome. So if you're listening to this, please reach back out to us. Share all of the stories that you have. If you have any stories of your family having encounters with La Llorona in Mexico, that would be freaking awesome to hear about. And I would love to do another episode about your stories. Anything additional that you may have. Also, if you want to be on the show, just go ahead and reach back out and we would love to have you on to share your stories in person. But folks, I think I have rambled along for long enough. Again, I appreciate everyone that tunes into the show. If you would like to be a guest on the show, if you would like to have your stories read on the show as its own exclusive episode, please feel free to reach out to us. Our email address is twroadpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram. You could find us on TikTok. You could find us on Facebook. Just go ahead, shoot us a message. We'll love to have you on. Honestly, I really enjoyed doing a solo episode like this again. If this is something that you, the listener, would like for me to incorporate, to mix it up here and there with our guests that we interview along with the topics that me and Dean cover, hell, I'll even get Dean to do a solo episode here or there if that's what you guys want. Let us know. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you tune in for the next one. Thanks for tuning into today's episode of The Wandering Road. You can find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, and most podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe and share. Also, don't forget to give a follow on Instagram at TWRoadPodcast and follow my TikTok at TWR Podcast. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.